Alright, so Yukong is confirmed, the new upcoming 4-star imaginary harmony character, and we're going to get her for free, so that's really nice since we really need a 4-star imaginary character. That's the only element that we don't have for free right now, and fortunately she's a good one. She is a support that actually kinda excels in breaking the enemy while giving a bunch of buffs to your teams. Okay, so let's take a look at her kit, shall we? Her active skill Emboldening Salvo basically gives Yukong 2 stack of Roaring Bowstring, and when she has Roaring Bowstring active, all allies gain an 80% attack buff. And every time an ally turn N, she loses 1 stack of Roaring Bowstring. At first glance, this skill might has a lot of number, but the downside is that this skill basically only lasts for 1 turn. And because of this skill, I feel like she's going to be good to run on a double DPS team to make the most out of her buff because she has to Roaring Bowstring, right? This skill basically kind of defines Yukong, so let's talk about her other kits first to kind of fully understand how she works. Her ultimate Divine Kestrel is a single target damaging ability. She is the only Harmony unit that can do this right now. It's pretty cool. If she uses her ultimate while Roaring Bowstring is active, she will give all allies 28% crit rate and 65% crit damage. Pretty big number. Again, right? The number is insane, but it only lasts for 1 turn and for 2 of your character basically. Looking at her kit, it seems like she wants to activate her skill first before you use her ultimate. If not, then the buff won't be activated, so yeah. Her talent, 7 layers 1 arrow, is basically a basic attack buffing talent that increases her weakness break efficiency and the damage of her basic attack. It has a 1 turn cooldown, so you kind of want to alternate between her skill and her basic attack to make the use out of her kit. This is really good. It means that she's going to be an excellent imaginary breaker, which we actually kind of need right now. Alright, now let's talk about Yukong as a unit. Her kit, in my opinion, is somewhat problematic. It seems like all of her kit relies on her stacks, which means it will only have 1 turn of duration for 2 characters. And you can't really choose where the buff lands, so you need to configure your team speed in order to make her the fastest character in the team, while your other DPS moves after her. This won't be too hard though, since she has 107 base speed, which is pretty high. The only problem is that it's just the consistency, right? The consistency on whether the buffs will land on your DPS or not. Because of how speed works in this game, after the first turn, your turn order can get pretty jumbled up. So you're going to need some speed tuning in order to make the most use out of her. But her biggest downside is of course the duration of her buffs, right? Someone like Ting has a 2 to 3 turns of buff duration, while someone like Bronya basically has almost the same ultimate as her, but lasts for 2 turns. Well, let's not compare her to Bronya though, that won't be fair. Her Roaring Bowstring basically works almost the same like Asta's talent, that increases your team's attacks with stacks. So we're going to mostly compare her to Asta's talent here. Asta's talent at max stack will give your whole team a 70% attack buff. The difference with Yukong is that the next turn Yukong's skill is just completely gone, while Asta can maintain most of that buff. If you use our skill with Asta and gain 5 stacks, for example, the next turn it will go down to 2 stacks. She auto attacks and then the buff will be at 4 stack, which is a solid 56% attack buff. So let's say in 4th turn you're going to do skill auto on both Yukong and Asta. Asta's attack buff is just going to stick way longer and in total will do more damage than Yukong's skill. Not to mention you also have the option of just not using Asta's skill and just keep auto-attacking on her for more skill points. So I feel like Yukong's biggest competitor here is going to be Asta. But there's also a big downside to Asta is that she's going to lose a lot of her power when not facing a fire weak enemies. If you're asking, then why not just spam Yukong's skill? Well, that won't be realistic since she has her talent and you want to make sure that you use it and you're just going to use too much skill point that the team is just not, it's impossible to run basically, right? Now let's talk about Yukong's ultimate. Yukong's ultimate gives crit rate and crit damage for 1 turn compared to Asta's speed buff that lasts for 2 turns. Asta's speed buff when used on a 121 speed character, for example, on an 8 cycle battle if you use her ultimate once every 3 turn. So this can easily be achieved with mashing cogs and energy regen rope. She can grant your DPS basically 2 extra turn, or your whole team basically, right? But not your whole team going to get 2 extra turn. Some of them is going to get 1 if you time your ultimate right after the DPS. But yeah, that is pretty much it. Well, Yukong can grant extra damage. Now there's no clear cut on which one has more value here, but if you use Yukong's ultimate correctly, she should be giving your team way more damage. And not to mention, Yukong's ultimate can buff your whole team's ultimate damage, not just 2 of your DPS, so keep that in mind, because of her ult giving her whole team the buffs as long as the Roaring Bowstring is active. So when it comes to ult, I have to say Yukong wins here. Asta will give more utility while Yukong just gives straight up more damage, but Yukong might or might not have an energy issue here, and if she has it, you would want to run an energy rope on her. It's not too big of a deal, but something just to keep in mind. You need Gold Relic energy regen though. If it's not Gold Relic, don't even bother because it won't help her rotation. For Light Cone, I'm pretty sure something like Dance 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 is going to be the best here, and since she's going to use her skill a lot, then something like Past and Future could work. But I feel like Dance 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 or Carve the Moon is just going to be better. Maybe Planetary Rendezvous if we see an imaginary DPS down the line. But yeah, for now, I think Dance 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 is the best. Now, how strong will Yukong be? I think she is going to be in a level above Asta, just because Asta's buff is pretty bad when fighting a single enemy and a non-fire enemy. Compared to Ting though, I don't think Yukong is going to be stronger than Ting. If you run double DPS, maybe Yukong is a little bit stronger. But for making a hyper carry team with 1 DPS, Ting is just going to be better. Ting skill point efficiency, her point to bank out skill point, right? Giving your DPS energy, the attack buff, benediction buff, speed. Man, I could keep on going here, but yeah. Yukong will most likely won't be as valuable as Ting, but we'll have to see. But for now though, that's it. And as usual guys, stay broke and keep playing gacha games.